Good morning, and that's a very kind honor. Thank you. Please sit. And so, ladies and gentlemen of Fox Hill, I greet you this morning, proud once again as the representative for this great constituency of Fox Hill, and in particular the village of Fox Hill. I pay my respects to His Excellency the Governor General, to our moderator, Reverend Sabrina Pinder, to all the bishops, reverend gentlemen and ladies, priests, deacons, and once again to you arrayed before me in this congregation. I want to recall today the contribution of a very important woman to the knowledge and context of the country in which we live today in the 21st century. Sadly, she passed away within a month or so ago. Her name, Diane Gale North Saunders, more formally the Right Honorable Dr. Gale Saunders. And if you go into any library in the Bahamas worth its salt, there will be stacks of books written by Gale Saunders about the history of the Bahamas. And had it not been for her seminal work in so many areas, we may not have known many of the stories which we know today. So I want to pay tribute to her and to thank her in her absence and her family for all the work which she did to protect the history and the heritage. And I want to say this like Reverend Dr. Philip Ramming said, the history of African people in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. This history would have been lost had it not been for her work. And today there are other young historians like Chris Curry and Dr. Keith Tinker, and they are continuing the work of discovering each day what our true history was and how we got to the place where we are by those who fought for us to be free. I recall the more recent history of Fox Hill, and today I am certain we are joined by the spirits of George Mackey and Frank Edgecombe and Lionel Davis, all former members of Parliament for the Fox Hill constituency who have now gone on to their reward. I remember also the late Carlton Francis, who, when he was the representative for Winton, which then included the Fox Hill village, was responsible for building and opening Freedom Park shortly after he became the representative. But it was in 1968 that Fox Hill became a discrete constituency, and its first representative was Mr. Lionel Davis. So we remember them all today, and they have gone on before us. I want to thank Warren Davis, who is now the chair of the Fox Hill Festival Committee, for his tireless work with all of the organizers of this service, led by our chair, Bishop J. Carl Ramming, and the ministers of the Fox Hill Council, and to thank him and his team for the energy and drive and imagination which they've brought this year to this special service. We are, with the slight possibility of Gambia being an exception, the only community in New Providence that marks this occasion, and certainly the only community in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas that has elevated this service and these remembrances to to the level that we enjoy today. And so therefore, I've said many times before, Fox Hill is the last redoubt of the protection of African culture in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And if there was any mistake about that, we were enthralled once again by the huge turnout of every Junkanoo group, particularly the A groups, this morning in Fox Hill, beginning at midnight. It was extraordinary. If you missed it, you missed a fantastic occasion and event. And as I tried to dance with the Congos, and as I watched from the balcony the other groups, I thought to myself about the extraordinary efforts which these mainly young people put into this cultural festival, and they do it for free. And why do they do that? Because whether they know it or not, they have been imbued with the message from their ancestors that freedom is not free, and that every day, when we can, we ought to mark it as an occasion, lest we forget. And we must never forget. Not to make us a slave to the past, but to ensure that as we look to the future will not repeat the past. And that is why we are gathered on these parade grounds today. As our Reverend Sherelle said, I'll say it in Portuguese, a luta continua. The struggle continues every day and every night. This community, it is said, was settled in and around 1801 when a man named Samuel Fox was granted 23 acres of land, I'm advised, in the vicinity of what is now St. Augustine's Monastery. And over the years, even though Judge Sandlin's came and the name was officially changed, in the popular lexicon of the Bahamas, this is Fox Hill. And everybody knows if you want to get ganaps, sea grapes, dillies, if you want good straw work, this is the place to come, because there's no place better than Fox Hill. In talking about our history, though, I want us to be sure that we do not leave out one of the principal actors in the fight for freedom. We often talk about our forefathers, but I think we forget about our foremothers. And over the last week, yesterday I joined the Jamaican community in the Bahamas to mark the 61st anniversary of their independence. When I looked around the church, there were mainly women in the church. When I look in the congregation today, there's mainly women in the congregation. When independence took place in 1973, there were no women at the table. And one of the consequences of that is that the Constitution that we have does not reflect the wishes, aspirations, hopes of women. And that's something in the long march to freedom which we have to rectify. But I want to recognize Dame Doris Johnson today, who has been officially declared this year, and the honor will be conferred in October, as one of the national heroes of the Bahamas. This story is told about Mr. Ingram, the first name escapes me, who was running for re-election in the Acklands Island District. He lost the election, and when he came home, his wife, Mrs. Ingram, said to him, had you had the votes of women available to you, you would have won that election. She took it upon herself to form the suffragette movement. Doris Johnson, having come back from school, was chosen as the voice of that movement that addressed the House of Assembly and said, "Noble womanhood rears her head," and demanded the right to vote. That right to vote came in 1962. And women have been influencing the direction of the public policy of this country in those formal ways from that day to this. We have joining us today Mrs. Ruby Ann Cooper Darling, who was the first to register as a woman to vote, and I'd like to ask her to stand. Thank you. So I want to pay tribute to women and their fight in the struggle for freedom. And in this connection, I'd like to recall a woman who is known in history as Poor Black Kate. Poor Black Kate was killed by her master and mistress in the year 1826. She was working in the home of the master and mistress and was said to be insolent. And so she was beaten and kept in a stockade and beaten again. They said pepper was rubbed in her eyes, and because she refused to relent, she ended up dying in the fields. And they were charged in 1826 and 1827, in a rare event. The slave master and mistress were charged with cruelty to the slave. They were convicted and sentenced to a term of imprisonment. But when Governor Lewis Grant returned to town, after whom Grantstown is named, he changed the sentence and allowed them to go free. This became a cause célèbre in the 19th century, which led to the movement across the British Empire for the abolition of slavery. And so today I want to remember her and say women have been there from the beginning, and women are still here. Thank you, therefore, to all of you, men and women, because the journey was all of us together. There was no separate journey. But when we tell the story, we leave one side of the story out. But I want you to leave this place today knowing there was men and women, fathers and mothers, who fought for the freedom which we enjoy today in Foxhill and around the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I want to thank, therefore, all of you again. Thank our young people for coming out this morning. And once again, a fabulous performance of Junkanoo. Flawless, dedicated. It is a craft which is simply extraordinary. I sent a clip of it to my colleagues in the Caribbean because some of them did not know the extent to which Junkanoo has evolved as a craft. And I've invited many of them to come and see it. That's our history, folks. And I hope that you inwardly digest it. Enjoy this day. It's a day to celebrate freedom. Freedom for all of us. Because we know that as long as one person is a slave, then we are all not free. God bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and God bless Foxhill.